Hi, my name is Megan Bonnerman, and this is my presentation on the training of the prompt hierarchy. What is prompting? Prompting is a type of strategy used in ABA to correct a learner while increasing their learning. How to ABA states that the prompt hierarchy shows us the path from the most intrusive and least independent form of support through the least intrusive and most independent form. Prompts can also be defined as cues to help a learner complete a task. Prompts are a key component of ABA therapy. Why is prompting important? Prompts are helpful when teaching a skill as it allows a learner to know what response is required. Griffin 2021 states that using prompt hierarchies when working with individuals diagnosed with cognitive or other developmental disabilities are instrumental for the learner. Minimizing errors may also reduce the likelihood of problem behavior during instruction. Research has found that prompts decrease frustration and assist in learning a new or challenging task. The visual below shows where a prompt falls into play during instruction. So it starts with the SD, which is the instruction, followed by the prompt, followed by the behavior, which is the response, followed by the consequence, which is either reinforcement or a correction. Examples of prompts. Full physical. The therapist physically guides the learner through a response. This includes hand over hand, where a therapist physically moves the learner's hand in order to complete a task. An example is a therapist places their hand over the learner's hand to guide them through holding the fork and poking it into their food. Partial physical. The therapist uses partial assistance while using physical guidance in order for the learner to respond. A therapist nudges a learner's elbow, something like this, towards the fork in order for them to pick it up. The learner is nudged again, if needed, in order to poke their fork into the food. Model. The therapist performs the tasks in order to teach the learner how to complete the task correctly. This can be done in person or through video. An example of this is a therapist picks up the fork and pokes it into a piece of food. More examples of prompts. Gestural. The therapist provides a gesture towards the task meant to be completed. Gestures can include pointing or nodding their head. An example is a therapist points to the fork or a therapist nods their head as the learner reaches towards the fork. Verbal. The therapist uses words or phrases to cue the learner to pick up to complete a task. This can include reminders or specific instruction. An example is a therapist instructs the learner to pick up the fork and poke it into your food. Visual. The therapist places a picture of a prompt in front of the learner. An example of this is a therapist places a picture of someone using a fork to eat food in front of the learner. Most to least prompting. During most to least prompting, the therapist teaches a skill by starting with the most intrusive prompt to ensure that the learner correctly responds. Most to least prompting reduces errors. Griffin 2021 states that the intrusiveness of the prompts are then systematically faded across trials if the learner is demonstrating success. Now in this visual to the right, it shows a different kind of most least prompting, as this one includes time delay. Griffin states that time delay is a type of prompt. It is used after a specific amount of time has lapsed. In this instance, this is the least intrusive prompt. Least to most prompting. During least to most prompting, a learner is given an opportunity to independently respond to the instruction. If the learner does not respond or incorrectly responds, a more intrusive prompt is provided. The intrusiveness of the prompt systematically increases with each learning trial until the learner engages in the correct response, as stated by Griffin 2021. And then same with this visual, the time delay is included as the least intrusive prompt, followed by verbal, gestural, modeling, partial physical, and then full physical. And these are my references for my presentation.